Welcome back to the fish room, everyone. I hope you're all having a fantastic day. Now, I've been moving a load of stuff around the fish room today. Essentially, there's a 80 to 90 centimetre gap underneath the camera where you are positioned, and I'm putting a community tank in now. I want to do like a proper community tank, but that's not the point of this video. But I was moving that around, and I also wanted to get this sorted out. Now, I've just done a recent video on water testing where I let the algae in this tank go mad just to see what was happening. And essentially, I've come to the realization it's nearly 9 months, or no, it is 9 months old, and I want to change around. Now, I was actually part way through cleaning this and changing it and moving it around when I thought, why am I not showing everyone what I'm doing? I have had a fair few comments over the time that I've spent on YouTube asking me, how do you shut down a tank safely? How do you move the fish? How do you catch the fish? What do you do with the fish? So I wanted to show you all exactly how I would shut a tank down. You know, catch the fish out, what I'd do with the plants and the substrate and the filter and everything. I just want to show you exactly what I do when I'm shutting down my tanks and moving everything around. Now, I have already been moving some of the fish and some of the shrimps out into other aquariums around my house. The chili rasboras are actually, well, more than likely going to go to a friend of mine. We've pretty much agreed it, but I'm going to store them in a quarantine tank for the minute so that he can pick them up. He's got a big shoal of them, and I think adding these guys to that will be really cool. I've also got the loaches to catch out. What else have I left in here? Yeah, not much, to be fair. There's not a lot left that I haven't already moved out. With the algae in this aquarium, I have pretty much worked out that it is the wood that I've got in there. So this wood is called tallow wood, and, well, it came with the bark on it. And now that the bark is peeling off and breaking down and, yeah, falling apart, it seems to grow the algae. I actually removed some of the bark and a couple of the twigs to another tank that was fresh tap water, and it's growing in there as well as it's growing in here. So I think the bark is releasing some sort of nutrient. As I've just done my testing video, I have literally tested nitrates, I've tested phosphates, I've tested everything, and obviously the duckweed and the algae will be using it up as a food source, but there's really nothing in there that should be causing this algae other than what I think is the wood breaking down. Now, as I mentioned, I could fix this algae. It's not that difficult a task. It is just manually removing it, making sure there's faster growing plants out competing it. But I'll be honest, as I say, this tank is like 9 odd months old now. I'm getting ready to move down into my garage and sort some tanks out down there, and I need the tanks up here to be a little bit easier and a little bit simpler, and I can't concentrate as much time as I want to on this one as I would really need to get over this algae issue. So it's time for a change. Whether you're shutting down an aquarium, moving an aquarium, upgrading it, whatever you're doing with it, it is important to be well prepared for it and make sure you're ready to take on the task. You want it to be as calm and as stress-free as you can make it. And that's what I want to achieve with this video. I want to make sure that you guys and girls have got all the knowledge, all the bits ready, your bags, your nets. Anyway, I'll go over that in a minute. We're going to do all the equipment you need to gather first before starting work on this. Before you start stripping down aquariums and pulling things apart, you want to make sure you've got all the right kit to hand to make sure this is going to be as painless and as easy and calm as possible, really. So you're going to want things like fish nets to be able to catch the fish. You're going to want bags or somewhere to put the fish once you've got the fish out. You'll see that there's an empty quarantine tank behind me, which I'll talk about that in a minute, but that is going to be where we are going to put some of the fish, or at least I think it is. But you're also going to want things like siphons and buckets to make sure you've got places to store the water. You're also going to want a lot of your cleaning equipment, so things like sponges. I've got spring-loaded brushes so that you can clean all of the muck out of the pipelines, and I've also got a lot of my scaping tools, so like my tweezers and my scissors. Hopefully, if you've got all of that close to hand, it should be fairly simple. The other thing I would recommend having to hand is a few storage boxes. Now, this is my storage box that I actually keep all of my plants in before I'm putting them into an aquarium. So you can see I've got some Anubiases, and I've actually got some Java fern that's still, not Java fern at all, that's Java moss. But I've still got that growing in here as well. But if you've got places to put the rocks and you've got places to store the plants, And I'll be honest, in a tight fix, I've actually used these storage boxes, filled them up with water as long as they're one of the stronger ones, and you could use this as a makeshift aquarium to sort of quarantine or to keep your fish in for a number of days or weeks, and then put them back in the tank when you're ready. The only reason we keep them in a glass box is so that we can see them and it looks pretty. Anything can be an aquarium as long as it's food safe and as long as you can fit a filter to it, away you go. I'm sure it goes without saying, but the fish are obviously the most important thing in the aquarium, and it is important to get this right and be as calm as you can about this whole situation. Now, if you are rehoming them, obviously make sure you've got it all in place. So you've got bags ready to bag them up, or you've got some buckets with lids, so you can take them back to the fish shop or take them over to a friend's house, whatever you're doing with them. If you're wanting to set the tank up, maybe in a different style, or you're wanting to do a bit of a rescape, then a quarantine tank is probably the best place for them, because you can set that up out the way. It doesn't have to be as big as your main aquarium, as long as it holds the fish safely for maybe a few hours or a few days, depending on what it takes, and you can run your filter and your heater on there. They'll be absolutely fine. I once had a customer who kept his full saltwater aquarium. It was like 200 litres, and he kept it in a large storage container for, it must have been about 3 or 4 weeks. Cracked his tank on a house move, had no tank available. He wanted a specific size. We ordered it in, but it was going to take weeks and weeks. So yeah, he kept them in essentially a loft tank, like a big black plastic tank. Filters in there, light unit over the top of it, all the rock and fish in there. They're absolutely fine. As I've said, we only keep them in here so we can see them. I'm going to be using this little quarantine tank down here to store some of the water in. This is only 30 litres and that tank is 60, so I'm not going to be able to store all the water in there, but I'm going to be able to store a good amount that's going to be mature and the fish are going to be used to, and I'm also going to be able to run my filter and my heater. Well, there's a heater already in there, but I am going to be able to run a filter and a heater on it, meaning that they could be quarantined in this tank for a little while, and I don't have to worry about the fish getting too stressed or being in my way whilst I'm clearing out the rest of the tank. So the filter's now starting to suck in a bit of air because we've obviously drained it down. So be careful of that, because once you start draining the water out of an aquarium, obviously you could overheat your pumps or your heaters by them not having access to enough water. Now what we're going to do with this is we're going to stick this straight onto that other aquarium, hopefully, if we can get all the plant off of it. That will mean that that aquarium is pretty much mature from, well, day one. Now, cycled filters and cycled media and everything like that is really worth its weight in gold, and it is worth protecting because, well, once you've got a mature filter, it's so easy to mature other filters and mature new tanks. I think I'm going to have to move this around a little bit and drain some of this water out. Right, now we've got rid of some of that water. Let's see if we can fit this. I'd say that I can fit this on this tank. I'm not sure if I can, actually. Because of the shelving, it's quite a tricky fit. Oh, no, look, here we go. Maybe. It certainly wasn't the most graceful of entries into the aquarium filter, but it's in. And like I say, I want to protect that filter and make sure that filter stays mature because, well, it's just going to make maturing the next tank way easier. I'm just going to fill this filter up with aquarium water from there, and that will get it primed and ready to go, hopefully. So let's plug that in and get that running. That should prime itself in a minute. We'll chuck the lid back on. So now our quarantine tank is set up and ready to go for fish. There's nothing else that really needs doing to it. We might pop a few plants in there as we're emptying the other tank, but that tank is now ready to be a temporary home for all the fish we removed from our main tank. So we've removed all of our equipment now. The heater's gone, the filter's gone, everything is taken out. Now I am just going to catch out some of this duckweed to give us a bit more of a sort of easy view into the aquarium because I can't actually see any of the fish. Obviously, as soon as you start doing big water changes in tanks, all your fish disappear anyway, so I'm not surprised they've all headed to the back. Now, where I just scooped all this duckweed, I'm actually having to pull red ram's horn snails out of this duckweed because I love my ram's horn snails. They do a great job in algae maintenance for me. So yeah, I'm making sure I save all of those guys and girls out of this plant. Now I'm going to see if I can start actually catching some of these fish out as I'm going. Rather than starting to disturb the water and making the water mucky, I'm hoping that if I can catch a few of them out before I start stripping out the wood and the plants, it'll mean that I can actually see what's going on. Now, if it isn't possible to catch them out while the tank's like this, and you've actually got a bit of a job, and everyone's running around and hiding behind things, and you're stressing everyone out, the best bet is just to start removing some of the wood, some of the places they're hiding, getting it out, obviously really gently, and then trying to catch the fish. It's no good you chasing them around and stressing them all out. I'm actually starting to struggle to catch things out of here now, so I'm going to start pulling out some of the hardscape, working really gently from the top and trying to deconstruct my root system safely and calmly for the fish. When you're stripping down tanks like this, it's really a decision only you can make as to what is best for your fish. Obviously, like I say, if they are darting behind cover and you're having to chase them and stress them out, then it's no good for anyone. It's not going to help anyone's stress levels by doing that. It's the same for fast moving fish. If you've got loads and loads of fast moving fish in a big aquarium, I have seen so many customers struggling to sort of catch them out, and they're chasing them around. So if you drain the water down, it means the fish have got less places to hide and to swim. And hopefully if you use some big nets, it'll just keep everything calm. But like I say, it is a decision you need to make as to what is going to be best for your aquarium. Even though this tank is infected with this horrible algae, there are some plants I do want to save, like this absolutely stunning Bucephalandra. Like, yeah, it's really chunky, really big, got great coloration. So I am going to be putting these to one side and maybe putting them in a tank with a little bit of anti-algae treatment to try and clear them up. Now I've been catching fish as I've been going, so I have removed the good majority of the chili rasboras now. The loaches, I think I've caught one, and I think I've caught one cherry shrimp so far. So there is still a few animals to catch out of this tank. Now the problem I've got is these absolutely monstrous boulders, and I am going to have to start removing these because there's just too many hiding spaces in amongst it to, well, for them to hide in and get away from me. It is ultimately a decision you have to make on what you need to remove and when you need to remove it and what order. Sometimes you can catch all your fish out with just literally draining the water down a little bit and they'll all be out at the front. Sometimes, like this tank is looking like it's going to be, I'm going to have to remove the entire thing before catching all of the fish out. Actually wasn't that bad. I managed to catch all the loaches, all the chili rasboras, and I believe all the cherry shrimp. We only had some big females in here. There was no males, so we've had no breeding in here for quite a while, but we are left with this mess to sort out now. Now we're going to get the rest of the water out of here now. There is no point in storing this for a next aquarium because as much as this water will be mature and seasoned, now that I've stirred everything up, it's just too horrible to use. So we're going to siphon it, discard it all, and then hopefully we're to the point of cleaning out the tank. rather than using the siphon, I'm actually just going to use a hose pipe, because the siphon sometimes gets bits caught in it, whereas this will suck out all this muck straight away. Now when you're at this stage, if you are just using a hose to siphon it, you can actually siphon the sand out. But I do find that this mixes into the water and you end up with a bit of a mess at the other end, and you have to sort it all out. So I prefer to leave the sand in there, just get the water out, and then scoop the sand out with a scoop in a minute. Now we've got no water, we just need to get the sand out, and I find the easiest thing for this is a dustpan and brush, but no brush essentially. Oh, I forgot there was a media bag in here. I have to sort that out first. So now we've got an empty tank. At this point, I'd be looking at cleaning all the filters, heaters, light units, things like that aren't going to be used and you want to put into storage. You want to thoroughly clean them, thoroughly dry them out, and make sure they're not going to break. You know, these pieces of equipment need to be looked after, and we don't want to be buying another filter in 6 months' time when we come to use it. So if you're not using any of your equipment, I'd give that a good clean now, store it away ready. But the next step we need to do is start spraying down all the muck that's on the glass, giving it a good spray, and then using a combination of, wherever I've put it, a sponge and a blade to scrape all that algae and muck off and get it looking crystal clear and hopefully nearly new. The tank's fully wiped down, it's all cleaned out. There's a little bit of residual water and maybe a little bit of sand, but that'll all dry up and then I can hoover that out once it's all dry. Now I've got a lot of new kit going on here, so there's a few new bits and pieces, so I'm not going to be popping anything else, and I'm just going to leave the light unit running for the minute. As we're shutting down any tank, the fish are key. The fish are the top of your priority list, or at least they should be. Make sure that if you're rehoming them, if you're moving them to a new setup, whatever you're doing, they are the first things to start worrying about and start thinking about what you're going to do. If they are moving into a new aquarium, make sure the water is tested, make sure everything is top notch so that they are being acclimatized into a good location. If you think the water parameters are going to be slightly different, then acclimatizing them like you would when you buy new fish and you actually sort of give them a bit of time to get used to the water will be a good thing. Because of the way I planned it today and because I had everything ready, it went really smoothly, and I was able to film it as well, which is a tricky thing. Doing all of these things and filming isn't always easy. But that's it. Shutting down aquariums doesn't need to be a daunting task. As long as you've got everything ready and you're in the mindset of, yeah, what you need to do in what steps, you'll be absolutely fine. So I hope that will make shutting down or moving aquariums or changing aquariums around a little bit less stressful for you. Follow these steps, you'll be absolutely fine. And yeah, I'll see you in the next one when I'll possibly be setting this one up or another tank. Don't know which one yet, but lots of setups coming.